And we begin with breaking news here at 7 o'clock, where tonight former President Donald Trump found guilty on all counts in his criminal hush money trial. This is the latest and newest video out of Manhattan, where Trump's motorcade left the courthouse in Lower Manhattan and went to his Trump Tower penthouse here, where he waved to supporters before he and his son Eric walked into the front door. We welcome you back inside Studio B for a special edition of NBC 10 News at 7 o'clock. It was a historic decision, the first American president to be convicted of crimes. Thank you for being here. I'm Dan Janik. Emily has the night off. We're going to bring you new, fresh political and legal analysis with our local experts who you know here on NBC 10. But we begin with the Manhattan District Attorney. He just spoke a short time ago. In fact, he wrapped up about 5 minutes before this, thanking the jury and prosecutors for their work and saying the justice system worked. Here is DA Braggs moments ago.
The 12 everyday jurors vowed to make a decision based on the evidence and the law, and the evidence and the law alone. Their deliberations led them to a unanimous conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Donald J. Trump, is guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree to conceal a scheme to corrupt the 2016 election. And while this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors.
That was the DA moments ago. We're going to take you live to New York. Now, bear with us. These are live pictures, unedited. And as you can see, a crowd has gathered outside the courthouse, but by no means is this a large crowd or a huge crowd. And there are no acts of violence or any visible signs of fighting. Some shouting and yelling. We're used to that, right? Anytime there's a trial with Trump involved, obviously. And this has been the way it's been every single day. So we're going to keep our eye on this. But right now, if you lose that lower third, Ray, just so we can see the people here. Thank you, my friend. You can see there are people right there, but don't forget, this is heavily policed. And New York City Police knew this was coming, so they made sure that this was battened down the hatches as we see this now. Now, we did hear from the former President Trump, as we have each time that he has spoken and in essence broken his gag orders. That's 10 times, maybe 11 today. This was his reaction after the verdict, maybe around 5:30 or so.
I'm a very innocent man. And it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution.
And that was Trump. We are joined now by Wendy Schiller. Of course, she's our NBC 10 political analyst and the head of the political science department at Brown University. Always good to see you, Wendy. Let's get right to it. Political fallout.
Well, good evening, Dan. I mean, Donald Trump's supporters will defend him. We've already seen the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, in Washington defend him, and he will raise money off this, and it will embolden and, encourage his supporters. But the same group of people that will decide this election, the independent voters or some Republicans who are disaffected, Democrats who are disaffected, does it give them just the slightest bit of pause? Thinking, okay, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. And that's what the Trump campaign probably can't afford come November. The same thing can be true of Joe Biden. Can't afford to lose those people either. I'm just not sure this verdict, a conviction on 34 felony counts, helps Donald Trump win back those independent voters.
And this also can't be a slam dunk for the Democrats either, do you think?
Well, I mean, there's nothing to slam, no basketball to dunk for the Democratic Party. This wasn't a partisan victory. There wasn't an election here. This is criminal justice. We've had presidents before get into trouble trying to cover up affairs. Bill Clinton comes to mind and was investigated by Republicans, essentially, and impeached by Republicans about lying about that affair. And this is what it is, right? No pun intended. Donald Trump tried to cover up an affair. But he used business funds, he violated campaign laws, he falsified business records. And ultimately, that caught up with him in a New York courtroom with 12 jurors today.
And Wendy, I want to talk to a little bit about a poll that came out today that's kind of surprising, but I want to follow up on what you just said. What does it say about voters, our political system, our culture, that we now have a tolerance for this? You know, if you said 25 years ago that, a former president may have had an affair with a porn star and then paid hush money, you'd think, oh, wow, is this a Netflix show? But it's almost like we've come to a point as a society that we tolerate a lot more than we used to.
Well, I mean, I think that's true. I think it's true across the board. But, we don't know if Bill Clinton would have gotten reelected in 2000, running after his affair with Monica Lewinsky was revealed, right? I mean, so we just don't know if there would have been a bar that he would have crossed, in that way. And we're about to find out. Now, people knew about Stormy Daniels in 2020, and they knew about Stormy Daniels essentially, in rumor mill in 2016. But in 2020, they rejected Donald Trump. And so the question is, in 2024, does this just make it harder for him to win the people back that didn't vote for him 4 years ago?
Right. And this leads me to the Marist poll that you may have seen that was just out today. Kind of surprising, or maybe not so many. 67% of registered voters say a guilty verdict wouldn't change their vote. 76% said the same thing about a not guilty verdict. Only 7% of voters say a guilty verdict would make them less likely to vote for Trump, which is basically what we're saying, but now in the form of a poll results.
Well, exactly. So who are those 7%? Are they Republicans, registered Republicans? Are they independents? If they're Democrats, they wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump anyway. But if they are people who might have been considering voting for Donald Trump and then say, well, a conviction, and let's not forget, it's not just one conviction on one count. Remember, we had a very famous mayor, Buddy Cianci, 18 counts of racketeering, only one conviction, but he still went to federal prison. So in that sense, it's really the magnitude that it's a conviction on all the counts. I think that kind of makes this a bigger deal for voters than it might be otherwise. Just a few counts, he could say he got off on most and just a few minor infractions. But this case, he was convicted on all 34 counts.
All right, Wendy Schiller, our political analyst and the head of political science at Brown University. Always good to get your insight. Thanks for joining us live here at 7 o'clock. Coming up